Get some insight from the person leading the White House pandemic office responsible for coordinating the monkeypox response, Dr. Raj Panjabi. I'm glad you're here, doctor. I have to tell you, when you look at the pictures of monkeypox and you see the idea of cases being confirmed stateside, the immediate questions for people coming out of this pandemic and in the middle of it, and we're showing this picture again, is how contagious and infectious is it, and could people possibly get it here?
Well, thank you, Laura, for having me on. So how contagious and infectious is it? It is not as contagious as COVID. This is a disease, a virus that causes a flu-like illness, fevers, headaches, muscle aches, followed by a pretty characteristic rash. Basically, think of bumps across your skin that get fluid-filled and pus-filled. Those can be painful. The disease usually lasts 2 to 4 weeks. And those who are most at risk of getting it are those who are in direct contact with those skin lesions or in contact with the respiratory droplets of someone who is infected with the virus. It cannot be transmitted, as far as we know, in past outbreaks, as well as so far in this one, through airborne transmission, like COVID can.
Well, do we know how it started? I mean, I know that the phrase monkeypox is an origin for lab monkeys, but it seems to have expanded to rodents and prairie dogs being carriers as well. What is the origins of how this would have started now?
Well, you're right. This is a disease, monkeypox, that is present in endemic, as it's called, in parts of West and Central Africa. I actually grew up in Liberia and have practiced in West Africa and have seen cases of monkeypox there. What's unusual about this outbreak, Laura, is that it's spreading in places that don't typically have infections. And so how it started is still unclear. We're getting new clues every day. Currently, we have clusters of outbreaks in places like Spain and Portugal and the United Kingdom. We have a few cases, as you noted, here in the United States, most of which have been travel-related or related to people who've had direct contact with people who've had monkeypox.
So how do you treat it? I mean, is the incubation period pretty quick? I hear it's a few weeks before you might develop symptoms. How do you treat it? Is it about quarantining? Is there a solution, a vaccine to prevent or treat? I mean, I'm a little bit nervous. I look at the pictures and I got to tell you, I'm not a doctor, I'm a lawyer. And I look at this and say, my God, I do not want this. I want no one to have it. So how do you cure it?
Yeah, it looks really terrifying. And I think, one of the things that we're doing in the pandemic office is working across our departments and agencies, first of all, with empathy, first and foremost. People's anxieties and fears around this disease are real. The second thing we're focused on is science. And we have already worked to procure the fruits of science, if I may, the vaccines that are effective against this virus. We have sufficient amounts of them, and we also have procured effective treatments. I'm happy to report, even with the first case in Boston at Massachusetts General Hospital, our colleagues across the government have been able to get vaccines to that hospital. And just yesterday, they've already started offering the vaccines to healthcare workers who've been exposed. So that's the second part. The first part is to identify those who are infected and to isolate them and make sure that they get the care they need, Laura. The second part is to ensure we vaccinate those who've been exposed to the infected individuals. If we do that again and again, and that's our approach at the White House and across the government, then we have a better chance at ending this outbreak.
So why is there talk about sex raves as the idea as a potential origins, or the idea of it being a sexually transmitted disease? I mean, it strikes me as if all the things you're saying seem to run counter to that. So why is this even out there, and what impact is that having?
Yeah, so it's really important to clarify, direct contact with the skin lesions is one of the easiest ways of contracting the disease. When people have sex, there is more direct contact. And so it is not a sexually transmitted disease, even though it can be transmitted through sex, but it also can be transmitted just through touch. Currently, the outbreak in several countries has been reported amongst certain demographics of the population who've had more intimate partner contact. You mentioned the festival, for instance. But we're early in the outbreak, and it's really important.
What demographic?
Well, it has been, it has been identified as people who self-identify as men who have sex with men, or in the gay community. But it's really, really important because we've seen this with other infectious diseases like HIV. This is early in the outbreak. It's where we've seen current clusters of infections, but it does not mean that this is a disease confined just to that community. Again, anyone who has direct contact with the skin lesions and anyone who has had direct contact through sex with the skin lesions, again, someone who's been infected, is at risk, whether you are gay or not gay.
I'm really glad that you've addressed this point because there's always a concern about a stigma being associated. I know you had lead with empathy, but the idea of the stigma can have dire consequences as well if that is presumed to be a causal connection here. When you think about that stigma, are you seeing?
Well, Laura, I started my career as an HIV doctor, and I started my career as an HIV doctor. I know exactly what you mean, and that is really, really critical.
Well, you said it here, and we all should know now that the causal connection is not there, and that the idea of how to treat and cure, we're still in the really origins of figuring out what to do next. Dr. Raj Panjabi, thank